Welcome to another edition of Le Pod. Franny's still with us, as ever, Matt Le Tissier, and today we're talking all things academy. And we've got, I won't call you the gaffer, Ed, the manager of the academy, is that right?
That's right.
What's the difference then between a manager and the big boss?
The big boss. I guess the big boss has the full responsibility. He oversees the full programme. My responsibility lies 9s to 16s, so under 9s to under 16s, and working closely with our education teams, our operations team and our coach development team.
And you must love your job, because history will say the academy has done very well in Southampton. Has it been successful?
Yeah, it's a fantastic job, fantastic club to work for, and the legacy really that we're trying to guard now as an academy is impressive.
I think it's an interesting one for you guys because of the amount of success that the academy has had. It's a really tough job to try and keep that going, isn't it? Because, you know, you get kind of cycles in football and you get some talented players will come through and then you'll have a couple of lean years. When you go through those lean years, that must be a tough part of the job.
It is tough, and I think there's a huge amount of expectation, but the narrative of players that have come through certainly helps you when you're talking to the younger lads in the pathway, because they believe there is a pathway. They've
Sure.
seen the likes of yourself historically, more latterly the likes of Gareth Bale, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Theo Walcott, and in recent years, Ward-Prowse, Jan Valery. So I think that narrative helps players believe it's possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're definitely one of the best clubs in the Premier League for giving youngsters a chance. I think it's important that the manager at the club is also brave enough to want to give those kids a chance, because I think for me, most of it. Okay, training's great. I say training's great. Training's, but if the ball's out, training's great. But you don't ever really find out about a player until you actually put them in a stadium with 30,000 people in there and see if they can handle it, because that's the key test, isn't it?
Do you know though, Franny, I'll ask you, when you were playing, was there any youngsters coming through when you knew and you thought, hang on a minute, this kid's special, he's going to go all the way? Can you tell from a young age?
I think I could tell that Matt was pretty special. He was, pretty unique when we came through. But it was so different back then, Ewan. You know, like Ed, as you know, we couldn't officially sign with the club until we were 14 years of age in our time as an associated schoolboy. So obviously you're taking lads at, 8 years of age now. So, you know, I guess it's so different. I mean, we were just still kicking the ball around in the playground and in the street with your mates, really, at that sort of age, and not really even playing for an organised side. But yeah, there were certain guys that you could look at and you think, you know, Shearer, Rod Wallace, you know, there were guys that you think in our, if you like, group, in our time, you thought, yeah, you know, I'm pretty certain they're going to break through.
Do you know what, I have to say, I was fairly confident that Alan would make a career in football. If you'd have told me at 18 years of age that he was going to be the record Premier League goal scorer by, 60 goals in front of anyone else, I would have struggled to have believed that at the time.
You couldn't see it in him, no?
Not to that level.
Right, but you knew he was good enough to make it.
I knew he had a mentality. He had a really strong mentality about him. Physically, he didn't mind a battle. So I kind of knew, he was going to be all right. I didn't realise just the volume of goals that he was going to score. And that might be because the first couple of years that he played with us, he had me and Rodney Wallace either side of him. Yeah. Me and Rodney were the ones that used to score all the goals, and we were wingers, but we weren't wingers that kind of went down the wing across for the centre forward. We were wingers who used to come in all the time. Alan used to do these runs out into the channels, and he ended up being the one that was crossing it in for me and Rodney to go and score the goals.
So that Shearer celebration we all know and love, did he not ever practice that in the mirror as a youngster, or was that a later on thing, or you didn't allow him to do it because he didn't score enough?
He didn't score enough to have a proper celebration at our place, to be honest. He got so much better when he left us. And I think that was one of the reasons, because when he went to Blackburn, at Blackburn they had, I think it was Jason Wilcox on the left wing, Stuart Ripley on the right wing, and they basically said to him, I don't want you going out anywhere, the width of the 18-yard box is that's where you're going to play. We've got two wingers who are going to supply you. And he just thrived on it. It was incredible to see the transformation in him. The volume of goals that he scored when he left us was just phenomenal.
I always remember as well that even as a youngster, I mean, like, I agree with Matt that he just seemed to improve year on year, didn't he? And went from strength to strength, and it's incredible when you look back on his career now. But even as a youngster, like, he was physically strong, mentally strong as well as a young man. But whether he's 2 yards out or 32 yards out, he would just look to blast the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, he was a greedy
Put the goalkeepers in the back of the net defenders, whatever it was. You know, he had that mindset and mentality.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make, actually. He was big, physically strong. Do you look for that in a youngster coming through the academy? Because I know from my experience as an athlete, as a junior, there was a couple of athletes who were very physically developed for their age, for 16, 17-year-olds. They're like 25-year-old men, but they never got any better. So when we became senior athletes, they were running the same times. We all grew and caught them up. Is there a fear then? You get a youngster who's a big, bulky boy, very strong, and you think, they've already peaked.
Yeah, it's certainly a consideration. We know where they are maturationally, so there'll be lads who are early maturers who can physically impact the game now. We also know there's lads who are later maturers. They won't have the same impact, but you can see their game intelligence, you can see their physical potential, and that will come out at some stage. So I think the key within an academy environment is to be patient and believe in what you've seen in that young player's potential.
Yeah.
Matt didn't eat vegetables till 28, did you?
No, no. I mean,
how would he get on now in the academy nowadays in terms of how professional it is? He'd be made to eat his greens, wouldn't he?
We'd probably encourage it. Yeah, we'd probably encourage it.
To be honest, it was mad back in our day because we used to literally rock up at 9 o'clock in the morning at the Dell, and there'd be a piece of paper. Do you remember in the first team change room,
the lunch
there'd be
list.
a piece of paper with a lunch list on it, and you just wrote down what you wanted. Nobody vetted it. You just wrote down and sent it across to the supporters club.
I'm assuming you mean like I'll have
we
a
were having
sandwich.
like sausage, chips, and beans.
You could say that.
Cheeseburger and chips.
I'd have maybe a burger and
Could
chips.
you specify like Burger King or KFC? Or
No,
all right.
None of the brandings, but
It wasn't Deliveroo. I mean, it's not
I
like that
imagine
back
some
then.
little academy boy on a push bike.
Little kitchen in the social club. But we did. We just ordered whatever we wanted, and nobody kind of.
It's
would
funny
not
how,
looking back,
how
it's
on a
mental
day,
now.
like a Tuesday afternoon would almost be our like fitness session, wouldn't it? You know, Dave Meryton, our youth team manager, that was the day we knew like
the lunch
we were
changed on a
running.
Tuesday.
So yeah, your choice sort of was toned down a little bit. Like it was either a bowl of soup or a sandwich or something like that. Not a big meal because you knew you're going to be running.
But in terms of the academy now, we're talking about diet and so forth. I mean, I'm assuming you not have to only sell the club to players, to potential professional players, but it's the parents. You have to say it's the Southampton way, it's beautiful on the south coast. You have to almost, well, I suppose it sells itself because of the great success you've had. But how professional is it if you could paint a picture what it is like now?
I would say it's really professional. I think you've all been to Staplewood. You'll see the quality of the facilities.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
We've spoken about the narrative of players that are coming through. I think the story almost sells itself. I think, as we said earlier, our challenge is to continue that momentum, continue getting players through into the academy, and also being mindful, we're talking about from under 9 to under 23. These are also young children, and we don't want to over-professionalise it too soon. So I think that's a slight caution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keeping it fun, I suppose.
You're on about physicality and players. Because you, at a young age, you were quite...
I was an early developer.
Don't tell me you had a beard like that at 10 years
He
old.
had a tash at
The
12.
tash was
Well,
out
he's had
as
a tash
teenager.
forever.
Yeah,
It did. It gave me an advantage, though, didn't it? Yeah, strength,
You were
speed.
one of the strongest, weren't you?
Yeah.
And yet when he turned... I mean, you look at him now, would you...
5'9".
5'9".
Yeah.
And yet at England school... We played England schoolboys, didn't you? And you were... And he was like...
I was probably 5'9" then. Back in that day, and it probably.
And so
I mean,
much
we were
stronger
playing
than
as
everyone
strikers. I was strike partners in the youth team. I was a striker.
Hold on a minute. You were a striker?
That is when I scored a few
Yeah,
goals.
we played up front
believe it or
together in the
not.
youth team.
But I think from my career perspective, it helped me from a positional perspective and my physicality. That as a fullback, I could get away with that as being a 5'9" player and someone of, if you like, limited ability. Whereas obviously if I'd stayed as a striker, I would have obviously been competing with Matt, Shearer, Rodney Wallace, others. So yeah, change of position for me personally helped. But I'm interested in how does it work? Like obviously signing lads at 8.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you look for a talent of a player, but is it easier to sort of break in at that age as a youngster as opposed to how do you sort of recognise players maybe at 12 years age?
Yeah.
Is it harder for them to break into the academy at a later age, or they got to be in almost right from the beginning?
No, I think players have entered at every stage of the pathway. I think if you looked at some of our current first team players, someone like James Ward-Prowse was in at 8, someone like Josh Sims was probably 12 or 13, Jan Valery signed at 16. So I think the entry point can be at any stage, and we pride ourselves in terms of an academy model that it's not just at 8. We have an ethos where we want to develop players from a young age, but they can enter at any stage of the pathway for sure.
Now, this might not be a popular question, but I need to ask it. In terms of the success of the academy, we've seen so many fantastic players come through. Theo Walcott, Gareth Bale, the Ox. all these players, Lallana, and we haven't kept hold of them. They've gone for big money to other Premier League clubs. Do you see that as a success for the academy, that you brought them through, you've nurtured them to become the best professionals in the Premier League? Or do you see that slightly as, we did our job, but unfortunately we couldn't keep hold of them? Or is it not your fault at that point?
It's a good question. It's a really good question.
Sorry.
No, I think we're extremely proud of any player that graduates out of the academy, can impact a Premier League game, can play in an international fixture. So that part we take great pride in. I think we would all, I'm sure, love the players to stay, like Matt and Franny did for their full career. I guess sometimes that's not possible, and we have to accept it. But we certainly take pride in the impact they're having in Premier League, Champions League, international fixtures. Yeah,
it's modern football.
Yeah,
it's modern football. You can't get away from it. You know, if there's a player here playing in the Premier League, lighting it up, he might be on, I don't know, for example, 50, 60 grand a week, which is incredible money. But if one of the big boys comes in and goes, right, we're willing to give you however much money to buy him, and we're going to triple, quadruple his wages.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
No, of course.
You know, let's be realistic about it. And I know, and as much as it hurts as a fan to see that player go, see you later, I'm off, there's a part of me that goes, I can kind of understand that. Yeah, I stayed here, but that doesn't mean I expect everyone else to do that.
No.
I understand that. And from a fan's perspective, I think that's one of the hardest things to actually accept.
Yeah.
I guess the upside in some ways, guys, is that, you know, the money that the club are actually receiving. I mean, there's been some huge sums of money that the club have received, haven't they, where they can reinvest again. And I guess that comes back in at your level, Ed, to sign the players of the future once again, to hopefully keep that cycle continuing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm assuming your budget hasn't been cut.
It's Matt's budget. It's Matt's budget.
Sorry,
you have to ask Matt. But no, from our point of view, we believe we're well resourced. We've got a lot of staff. You both know that.
Absolutely,
in the academy. So from that perspective, yeah, it's clearly a positive.
Can you tell me like an average day then for an academy player? Because I remember this is a long time ago when I was at school. There was a boy called Junior Mcdougal, and he was signed to Spurs or Bobby Robson School of Excellence. And I thought, this kid's going to make it.
Is that a made-up name? That?
No, that's just your name. His name's David Mcdougal.
Oh, okay.
He plays now. I think he scored for Accrington Stanley or something in the FA Cup. And he didn't quite make it. He was one of those kids in the playground would take on 50 of us, and we're thinking, he's Pele.
That's another misconception, by the way.
What?
You just said he scored in the FA Cup then.
You think he did?
For Accrington Stanley, and you said he didn't quite make it.
Well,
now, anyone who plays at a professional level, even if it's for Accrington Stanley, let me tell you, they've made it.
No, I get that, man. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
Such a small percentage of players that get to play football for a living.
I get that.
Even if it's at that level, they've made it.
Well, the thing is, for us, where I thought he hasn't made it as far as we hoped, was he was signed at the age of 14 to Spurs, and I followed his career, and he never quite made the first team. And for all of us locally, that's deemed, as you rightly point out, I deem that as a bit of a failure, but not at all. He made a living out of something he loves doing. But if he was around now, how different would the everyday academy be for him? I mean, it's not just you turn up and kick a football around all day. You educate these kids, you teach them about life. It's a big lesson.
It's a big lesson, yeah. So it's a full day when they're in for day release. They'll have some contact with the coaches, clearly, a lot of time on the grass, a lot of time in the video analysis suites, reflecting and reviewing performances. We've got a team of psychologists that will work with them, a team of teachers that provide their education and provide support in that respect. So it's a pretty comprehensive day of activity from every discipline, including coaching.
So what ages is that involved from?
The first age that a player's in for a full day of day release is under 12. So they'll come in, they'll leave school on a Monday evening, and they'll be with us all day on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah. And then progressively they spend more time with us.
More time as they get older, yeah.
Day release sounds like naughty, doesn't it? Like on day, he's allowed out on day release. He's been seen in Southampton.
The 8s, 9s, 10s and 11s, how many times a week are you working with those guys? Yeah,
so we see those lads on a Monday evening, a Wednesday evening, and then they leave school Friday lunchtime, which clearly they love. They love coming out, and they spend Friday afternoon and Friday evening with us.
How do the lads of that age that are coming in on day release and things like that, and that are obviously signed with the club, you know, I don't know about you, mate, but I remember at a certain age for me, sort of getting late teens, well, not late teens, but sort of still school age, but there came that point where, you know, I just loved school. It was like almost going to school for PE, probably the same, Ewan, you know, and, you know, sports was everything. So I played cricket, played rugby. At what point did a club ever step in and almost say, you need to take the football side a little bit more focused and serious now?
Yeah, we try not to. We try to avoid making that decision for the players. A lot of them will engage in other sports. We've got lads quite high up in our pathway that will play cricket, for example, or basketball. So they will engage with other sports. And we'd never discourage that. We think it's beneficial. Probably a natural point becomes their under-16 season when they're doing their GCSEs. Football's becoming a key focus at that point. So that's probably the age where naturally it would look to happen.
When does it hit home to them when they're around other players that, hang on a minute, I might actually be able to make a living out of doing this and I absolutely love it? Is there like a eureka moment, or do you sort of take them to the side and say, listen, it's good you're doing your education, enjoy your cricket, do other sports, but you do realise you might make it. So I suppose you don't want to big them up too much so they become a bit lazy, a bit complacent, but you need to let them know they're good.
Yeah, it's a real fine balance because there's no inevitability. Not all of them clearly will be professional footballers. So you have to get that balance between absolutely giving them belief, but not giving them too much that they ignore other aspects of their life.
Is there a maximum amount of scholars that can come when you get to 16 and you make that decision? What's the number you've got that you're allowed to take on?
You can take a maximum squad of 30, I think, at that scholarship age. So numbers are limited to a point. I mean, it's quite a healthy size squad, and we'll look from our under-16s group to take probably 60 to 70% of those is our aspirational target.
Oh, okay.
What's it like when the penny does drop for them, or even rewind a little bit? I can only imagine. What's it like when they get their first kit drop, when they get a load of Southampton football kit? And I can only imagine being a 9-year-old and, getting taken out of school and saying, we believe in you. Here's some new boots. Here's a sock. It must feel really nice for them, almost like Christmas.
Yeah, it's one of the favourite things is the induction with the player and the parent, because you see that level of excitement and enthusiasm. And I think our role or our responsibility is to maintain that enjoyment, because there is a danger. We talk about that professionalised stage, that we want to ensure they continue to enjoy it and remind them of why they entered the football programme. It is because they love football.
Yeah, I think that the bit about still encouraging them to play other sports, I think that's actually quite crucial. For when I look back at my development, the fact that I played nearly every ball sport.
Yeah.
The only one I didn't play was rugby because I was a coward. But I played nearly everything, and I can honestly say it helped me in my coordination and everything around balance and all sorts of stuff. And I think it was such a massive help to me to be able to play sports. So I think it's really key that the kids are encouraged to play.
There's so many transferable skills, and I think also life lessons. You might not be quite as good at some sports, and you've got to know what it's like to be able to lose and take disappointment and bounce back from that. So I totally agree, man. I think it's good to do all sports. You were at Belmore, weren't you? I think at school,
right,
and you, like me, probably. I loved absolutely everything. Any after-school activity, any club there was, I would be doing anything to get me out of the classroom. I would do sport, and for me, I truly think eventually athletics found me. It became clear I was better at that than I was at definitely football, rugby and other sports. But it's an interesting one. What if a kid then, let's flip it, what if a kid comes in and says, look, I did really well on my school sports day. I think I want to be a sprinter. I don't want to be a footballer anymore. I mean, do you have to keep them interested?
I mean, that hasn't happened yet.
No, I was going to say, well, most people want to be a footballer, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, the athletics wages ain't the same, are they?
All right. I've dug myself in for that one, haven't I? Could have been worse. I could have been a swimmer or something.
No. I mean, like we said, we don't discourage it. We want the lads to enjoy their time with us. We'd never stop them doing anything like that. So,
Ed, how would you say for example, a 9-year-old sort of almost keep that interest in the sport if you see them maybe just drifting towards something else?
I think that the programme naturally does that in terms of engaging them in multi-sports. So they'll come in and they'll do various different sports with us as well. They do in education a football-focused curriculum to keep them engaged both educationally and from a football point of view. We've also got a pretty extensive games programme, a tours and tournaments programme. The boys have visited, I think if I look at the academy programme over the past 6 months, they've visited Baltimore, they've been in China, they've been in Poland, various other places in Europe, which just that level of engagement is incredible, really.
We were lucky if we got to Europe, didn't we?
yeah, the Isle of Wight.
Where did we go? We went to Holland, didn't we? We had a tournament in Holland as youth players, didn't we? Dave Meryton
where's
took us
Laupheim? I want to say Laupheim. Was it Germany? I think it sounds
German.
Yeah. I didn't go on that trip.
I don't think you went on that one,
No,
did we?
I was already in the first team by then.
He almost skipped the reserves as it
He
was
didn't even
then,
bother.
went straight into the youth team.
It's a good point, though, Ed. Matt saying went straight to the first team. What about the other side of the situation when you've got to give the disappointing news that a youngster's been with you for a number of years, but they're not quite going to make it? You've got to sit them down and say, we've got to let you go. I mean, that must be tough.
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult and the most disheartening part of the job, to be honest. There's boys that have been with us maybe 8 to 9 years, and you're relaying news that they've no longer got a journey with us. And you've got an emotional attachment to them.
Is that part of your job, or do you leave that to the coaches who have coached them?
So this year it's become part of the job.
Nice.
And it's not a part. Yeah, it's definitely not a part I've enjoyed, because we've invested a lot of care and time into the boys. They've invested so much of themselves into the club. So it's not nice.
And is that decision that's made on the kids? Is that done yearly, or how does that work?
So there's different registration periods. So the under-16s, as an example, we'll offer them a 2-year registration at under-14s. So at the end of that period, we'll
make
reflect
the decision.
on their continued development.
And what age do you sort of start looking at? Because obviously, you want to recruit talent that goes all the way through and stays with us, hopefully. But obviously, we're aware that you go out sometimes to another club and bring an individual or two in. At what age do you really start looking? Do you look at this? Do you assess the squad as a whole and just see where you need to strengthen, maybe, or is there a certain age group that you start making that decision?
Yeah. I mean, we like to be patient with the players. We know that development isn't a linear journey, so we want to be patient with the players in our system. But I think we would start at under 16 in particular to really look at depth charts, to look at players certainly in Europe and more domestically as well.
What about players that you let go? Let's just say, I'm not going to say your names, but there's a player who's got to the age of 15. He's not developing much. You think he's not going to make it. You get rid of him. 10 years later, he's signing for Chelsea. do you kick yourself? How do you feel when you see someone you think, they'll never make it?
Again, it's not happened to me yet, so I don't know. And I'm sure it will, because it definitely isn't an exact science. And I think Danny Ings was here as a young player, and subsequently he's our record signing, isn't he, in terms of coming back. Tyrone Mings played for England this year. I think he was released as a 14-year-old. So you're making your best possible judgment based on the information you have at that given time, and it's very challenging, that.
We had another funny one in our time, mate, didn't we? We had Kevin Phillips, who was here as a right back.
Oh, yeah.
He obviously had Jason Dodd, Jeff Kenner ahead of him. So he almost had that pathway blocked from his perspective. And as we know, he moved on. All of a sudden, he started banging goals in as a striker.
Best thing that ever happened to him then.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, how he went from being a right back to adapting to being a centre forward and to be as successful as he was. I mean, he was a Golden Boot winner.
Yeah.
So it's interesting about positions and the youngsters and obviously where they develop and how they develop. We talked about Franny being a centre forward going to a fullback. When I was spotted playing for Southampton. Playing for Guernsey under-15s by Southampton, I was actually playing out of position. So I'd spent my entire growing up in my school team and my club team centre midfield. So I played centre midfield the whole time. This one game we played out of Millbrook, and our coach came to me and said, I want to have a look at two other guys in the centre midfield to see who's going to play alongside you. Can you go and play on the right wing for this game? And I went, yeah, no problem. So I played on the right wing. There was a Southampton scout there. I had a good game. And they invited me over, and so when I came over, they just put me on the right wing. I'm like 14, I think I was at the time, nearly 15. I didn't have the heart to go. Actually, I'm not a right winger.
Surely that's destiny. That's fate. That is the fact that one particular day when there was a scout there, you were said, "Do us a favour. We want to look at these. Get up front."
So I have all my trials as a schoolboy as right wing. I played right wing, and then when we got taken on full time. I think Dave Meryton was the first one that I started on the right wing, and then he played me up front with Fran in the first youth thing. Actually played a few pre-season friendlies, and he obviously saw something in me. So me and Franny played up front, but for the first 3 years of my first team career, I pretty much played as a right winger, which was somewhere I'd never really played when I grew up. was mad.
Does that happen to you at the academy? Do people turn up and say, listen, I'm a striker? And you say, hang on a minute, you're not. You're a right back.
Yeah, it can happen, yeah, for sure. And probably from under 12, the lads start playing 11v11, you start considering positions. But even someone like Jake Fokins, who made his first team debut earlier this season, Jake was certainly more of an attacking player, an 11, and converted to a 3. So I think it can happen, yeah.
We had Wayne Bridge. Remember Bridgie?
Yeah.
Bridgie was a left winger all through his youth team and played the first, 10 or 12 games he played in the first team. He played as a left winger, and he wasn't particularly great. And Dave Jones, I think it was, just took one look at him, and one day he just went, "You need to be playing left back," and he changed him to left back. And I'll never forget, Dave Jones went in the local paper, and he went, "Wayne Bridge will play left back for England."
He predicted it.
Predicted it when he moved into position. He went, "He'll play left back for England."
I think Bridgie was
and at that time, I looked at him and went,
Bridgie
"Mad."
effectively took my place within the side, didn't he? So
that's right, yeah,
obviously I would have been playing as a left back with Bridgie in front of me.
So you're saying if it hadn't been for Bridgie, you would have been for England?
Well, I'm not going to go as far as that, but it would have been nice to have thought so, Ewan. But I obviously think, I saw myself as an out-and-out defender. I think when Bridgie sort of stepped in as a fullback, he was maybe that beginning of that era of that player that you expect to bomb on,
a bit,
get forward, provide assists, get balls into the box, whereas I would have almost stopped at the halfway line. He was that start of the modern fullback, if you like, probably.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, Ed, there might be youngsters listening to this, or parents of potential great footballers thinking, I'm 12 years old, I think I'm strong, I'm better than everyone in my school. What do you look out for? What are the attributes to make it, to come to the academy?
Yeah, I think it will depend on each individual. We tend to look at a number of attributes. So game intelligence, so are they demonstrating a game intelligence? Are they having an impact upon the game? Some, for the reasons we spoke about earlier, physicality, etc., might not be able to impact a game now. Are they enthusiastic, curious? Matt touched on mentality earlier. We want to see those lads that are resilient, can deal with setbacks within a game, are seeking to learn, are responsive to the coach on the sideline. So a number of attributes there, athleticism, those types of attributes that are not set. I don't think we will ever say that's exactly what we're looking for, but broadly in those areas.
And what about the road to get to you? Do you have school teachers often write to you or email you and say, listen, I've got this kid, he's dynamite. How does it work? How could someone listen to this now who really thinks they can do it, get hold of you?
Probably not by emailing me or phoning me.
787.
We've got a pretty extensive scout coverage. So the scouts cover the south of England and beyond. So we're watching a lot of games. The Saints Foundation do a really good job in terms of the work they do in schools, and we'll often say we've identified a player or we see a young lad with talent, and it might come through a referral from a school. So a number of pathways, really.
Would you have kept going, Matt, if you hadn't been spotted that? In your heart of hearts, did you always know as a youngster, I think I'm going to make it?
Yeah, it was kind of the only thing I wanted to do as a kid growing up. It was the only thing I wanted to do. I was actually at Oxford before Southampton as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old. And a friend of my dad's was involved at Oxford, and he'd got me up. I actually left Guernsey and went to live in Oxford for a little bit. But I didn't settle there. I was too young to leave home. I was really homesick, and I kind of went back, and that's when I came back to Guernsey and then played in the game at Millbrook. And it was just that one game that they obviously saw enough in that 90 minutes to go, we want to have another look at him.
For me, it happened really quick. I was playing even up to 13 years of age just in the school team, and then I played in the school six-a-side at the sports centre one day, and there was a parent or a manager of Windsor United, who were a team in the Southampton Tyro League at the time, spotted me playing, asked if I was part of a team. I said no, apart from the school. Asked if I'd be interested to go and play for him. And within a year, between 13 and 14, one of the Southampton scouts had spotted me playing for Windsor in the school, and then signed at 14 years of age, and then obviously with Matt at 15 and 16 as what was the old youth training scheme.
Did you have the moustache at 13 years of age?
It was scaring kids at that age,
there.
even, honestly. Yeah,
The little top lip shadow.
Yeah. I used to get parents on the touchline almost.
Who's that dad playing?
Yeah, almost like screaming abuse at me, saying, there's no way he's 13 or 14 years of age. So, yeah, that was pretty tough at the time.
It's interesting what the point you touched on before when you were on about the attributes that you were looking for. And it interested me because I hadn't really thought about it before. But the bit where you need some mental resilience to setbacks in games, because at the moment, when you see teams that are low on confidence, they concede a goal, and you just see them just absolutely fall to pieces. You know, we've been guilty of that a little bit at times this season. And when I look back to my childhood and thinking about playing in games for my school and everything, conceding a goal never used to bother me, because I just used to go, oh,
we'll score more.
I better go and get. I better go and get one the other end now.
Can you teach that?
Let one in.
Can you teach that, or do you think that's natural that you're a winner in life?
I'd never really thought about it.
I often think real good sportsmen and sportswomen have got that natural. They've got the switch, and they just don't quit. They don't know what losing is, and I don't think you can teach it. You can help it. You can push it along a bit, but I think there's something natural about the best sportsmen and women around. I think it's a natural given desire to win.
Yeah, I think you can influence it. Like you say, I think creating an environment where those behaviours are rewarded. So if there is a setback in the game, if the winger's gone past the fullback a couple of times, but you just see a real persistence from the fullback, or if the goalkeeper's chucked 2 in, but he keeps coming for crosses or he keeps looking to play out, I think it really gives you a sign of potential. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to look for. Absolutely performance now, but what's that lad's potential? So
you touched on the psychologist said that you've got it working in the academy. That kind of thing, is that a voluntary thing, or is that something that the kids will have to go and sit and listen to?
We certainly won't force any lads to go and engage with a psychologist. I think we've got upwards of 200 players in the academy, so the psychologist engaging with each of those is extremely difficult. The psychologists do a lot of work strategically through the coaches. So the coaches, we'd like to say, are psychologically minded and can influence the players in a positive sense.
Okay.
And the psychologists, they've got an open door policy. They're pretty visible. So the players are, of course, welcome to engage with them as they wish, really.
Yeah.
Is it difficult at that age? Because surely when you're a 9-year-old, it's all about just having fun, isn't it? You don't want to make it too serious because you don't want to put them off. I think the worst thing is a pushy parent, and you see them in all different sports really pushing their kids from a young age. You just think, let them just play, let them enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to strip away any sort of stigma with psychology as well. It has to be fun. I think very much at the younger age groups, it's about team dynamics, it's about enjoying yourself, it's about contributing as a leader, or those sort of psychologically minded factors.
The psychologists only came into our towards the back end of our career, wasn't it?
Yeah, was it?
I think Glenn Hoddle was probably the first one.
Yeah,
that brought one about. That was kind of like late 90s. So we spent the first 10 or 12 years of our career with nothing like that at all. But I think looking back, I think the mentality of the players then was so strong, and it was so difficult to fight your way through everything to get to where you got to. And by the time you were there, you were mentally and just mentally prepared for any setbacks, really.
So who did you both turn to then if you didn't have someone within the staff that you could say, listen, I'm struggling to forget that error I made last Saturday? Was it just the team was so strong together? For
me, Dave Meryton was the best person. I mean, he had the biggest influence on me as a player and as a person in terms of my development. So obviously I was 16 when I came, and Dave was youth team manager. And that year, 15 months before I made my first team debut, he was amazing in what he did for helping us to grow up and to be able to deal with setbacks. I mean, it was quite... I mean,
it was intense.
It was intense. It was really intense.
Yeah, because he was hard on us.
Just old school, hard coaching.
Hard. Yeah. He was demanding of you, physically, mentally.
I think the physical side of things that he pushed us, mate, to like, and it was the offside pitch as well. You know, like his standards that he was set. You know, with all the jobs that we would do and how we'd look after the pros and things like that. We had to be bang on it day in, day out. You know, because he wouldn't let us, slip an inch, would he, with our standards?
It was the best. It was the best grounding I could have had, not just for my football life, but for the rest of my adult life.
I was going to say, the fact he was tough on you and he taught you discipline and work ethic, that stood you in good stead after football, hasn't it? Because I'm sure there's 100%. Many lessons even the academy boys now learn that they can take with them forever. It's more than just sport, isn't it?
Oh, it is, absolutely. There's a lot, and I was pleased when Ed said before that yes, we want to develop the boys as players, but you want to make sure they're good human beings as well. And that was the thing about Dave Meryton. He wanted to push you to become the best you could be, but he also had a very, very strong. He was a very religious man, and he had very strong values, and he wanted people to be good people. So we used to go down to the homeless centre, didn't we? The St Dismas. He would take us down there every so often, and just give us that grounding to just go, look, this is the other side of life. You know, it's not all roses out there. There are people who struggle. There are people who do. But he gave us a picture of what the whole world was like, not just in our little bubble in the football club.
I think that helped us a little bit when we then continued our career through the club, and then we were like captain and club captain. That, you know, we saw that part of the community side of it and trying to give back a little bit as footballers in the city. You know, something outside of football, which I'm sure is a big part of what you do with all the boys now.
So are you trying to say you're blaming Dave Meryton for those 3 challenges that you did?
Maybe. I wouldn't blame Dave for anything, because as you say, he was such a massive influence on not just either of us, but all the group, all the players, even if they didn't make it here at Southampton. Yeah. As you probably mentioned before, Ed, there's almost like a Southampton stamp on all these top names that you mentioned before you, and it's even if they leave Southampton, which we want to keep them, yes, but if they go on, there's almost, you can see that Southampton stamp through a lot.
Well, it's the Southampton way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's what we talk about. Yeah.
Not just as a player, but almost as a character and an individual off the pitch as well.
I think with Dave, I think if there's any coaches listening to this, what I would say to him was, you don't know just how important you can be to those kids, and if you show the passion and the enthusiasm for football in any way the same level that Dave Meryton showed, it will rub off on those kids unbelievably.
Well, we all remember a school teacher, don't we? There's someone in your lives who have a massive impact on you at a young age, and they might think they're just doing a job, but it's a lot more important than that. So are you well aware that you are shaping these young players' lives, really, away from football as well? You've got a big responsibility.
Yeah, and I think we take that responsibility, and I think the coaches, to pick up on Matt's point, really understand the privilege they have, because they are influencing and shaping young people, and not just as a footballer, but as significantly as a person.
So, Ed, to finish up, I've got to ask you, the future of the academy, the future of this great club, should we be excited?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of talented players with high potential, and ultimately, like we said before, it's our responsibility to guide them through.
And in terms of the manager, Ralph, massive impact on all the players. I've heard from many people he's good to be around, and he believes in the youngsters.
Yeah, of course. I think if you look at last season, I think we had the youngest average age of a Premier League squad. So clearly Ralph's committed to playing young players. We had 5 academy debutants last year, 11 academy graduates playing total. So a real commitment to the pathway that exists. And I think that can only be a good thing for everyone at the club.
Well, Ed, thanks very much. I think that's been really interesting to hear all the views. And it's nice to hear the future of the club is in safe hands. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Cheers, Ed.
Right, I love this part of the show. So, Franny, this is called arrogance.
Okay.
And normally there's only one man on the sofa who's eligible to be arrogant because he wins every week. So basically, I'm going to ask a question, and say, for example, Matt says I can name 12. You can either call him out on it, and he has to name 12, or if you can better him, you will beat him, and you will be Mr. Arrogant. So today's subject is League Two football teams, 2019-2020 season. I can tell you there are 24 teams in that division. Have a little think. How many do you think you can name?
Oh, wow.
It's going to be low for me, I know that.
Oh, wow.
Well, just don't double bluff him, right?
Yeah.
Have a little think, and then...
And how long we got?
You've got a minute. Once you say you can name them, I'll give you a minute to see it. Out of 24, I suspect Matt will get at least 18.
Wow.
League Two?
League Two.
Not in a minute. I'm trying to go through the teams. I get a bit confused
I'm
sometimes.
trying to remember.
And remember, you've got to get them right as well. So if you mess one up, it's and then Franny will take
Straight
over.
out.
Okay.
Unless Franny might be you. I'll start with you then, Franny. How many do you think out of the 24 you could name?
At this moment, 0.
You could surely know one. I'll give you a clue with one. Cobblers. Right, you got one.
Is that a clue?
Yeah. But you should
Not
know.
helping me. I'll go. Oh, no, see, whatever I say, I know he'll know more than what the number.
Well, that's the whole point. You can bluff it now, and then he'll either call you out or try and beat you.
Yeah, but I know him. He'll just go name him then because he already knows that I won't know many. All right. So you want a number from me, yeah?
Yes, out of 24. 24 teams in that division. Bearing in mind, the podcast is only 45 minutes long.
5.
5, okay. What are you saying, Matt? Call him out on it? Or?
Name them.
No.
Sorry,
and the 5 was a bluff as well.
Well, take your time, because if you get any wrong, then you're out.
I just know I can't get it already because it's only what.
You've only got a minute.
Just think alphabetical order is the easiest way. Well, go on. Are you ready for your minute?
No, I'm not at all because I'm still thinking. I
You
need
said
more
5. Right, go on. Give it a go. I'm going to start the clock on you. I'm sorry.
I should have said 1 or
Right,
2.
the clock started. Come on.
League 2.
Yeah.
Come on, Franny.
Cobblers.
Orient.
Yes.
Blackpool.
You're out. You're out already.
One.
There is a B in there. There is a B in there, but it wasn't Blackpool. No. I won't say, because now you've got an opportunity to really shine. Well, you've only got to get get 2 and then you beat him. But would you like to just reel them off? What would you have said if I said, how many could you name? What do you think?
In a minute, I don't know, maybe
20.
8.
8?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to have a go?
Okay. Swindon.
Yes.
Port Vale.
Yes.
Scunthorpe.
Yes.
Or it was
You're going well there.
Colchester.
Oh
No, they're League One.
Yes, yeah, correct.
Oh, they got relegated, didn't they?
I
They
can
got
tell you there's
relegated.
5 C's, teams beginning with C's.
Yeah, Carlisle.
Yep.
is that 4, 5?
Yeah.
He's won anyway, Franny.
I know, it's true. Yeah.
Did I say Morecambe?
No, you didn't, but that's correct.
Very good.
What about my cobblers? No,
Cheltenham. Northampton.
Yeah, Cheltenham, yeah, and Northampton, correct.
I think it's fair to say he did probably name a few more than me.
10 seconds then.
Come on,
You've probably already
one
done
more.
a 6.
Is it 1 more, 2?
I'll give you a clue. I don't know if they're known as this, but locals call them codheads if you're from this area.
Grimsby.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't. How many get? 9.
9.
9.
Very good.
You've not lost yet.
No, I know that's hard though.
It's sickening, isn't it?
I get a bit
No,
confused.
1 week.
between
No,
League One,
Rickie
League
called
Two.
him out.
Sickening.
Yeah, okay, hang on. You have lost 1.
No, Rickie, I got one wrong, didn't I?
Yeah.
I think I got Van Dijk wrong as Player of the
You
Year.
did. You said the Daily Echo Player of the Year and he didn't win it.
He didn't win it, no.
It's just annoying going up against him in quizzes of
Yeah.
any type. Anyone that's been on Countdown and won on Countdown is going to be a tough opponent.
Well, let's be honest. He is the Oracle, isn't he?
True.
He is. Well, Franny, that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much
Pleasure.
for joining
Really
us.
enjoyed it.
Matt, it's been a pleasure as ever.
Always, mate.
And next time we'll bring you more interesting... Well, I don't know what we're talking about next time, but I've no doubt
Who knows?
it'll be great, whatever it is.
Absolutely.